So hello all, good evening. Welcome to this learning series on the economic indicators, especially the leading economic indicators. So now one might ask the question, why only leading economic indicators? So as we know that economic indicators are broadly classified into various types such as leading, lagging, as well as the coincident economic indicators. But why leading indicators have special focus is because they are very forward-looking in nature. So they give a very futuristic guidance, which in a way is broadly helpful for investors and financial market participants, traders, and all such dynamic policymakers who look at such key data points which are forward looking. They give some guidance about the future. So in this series, we'll try to learn about the leading economic indicators and this uh, series, I'll just try to apply the concepts of the leading economic indicators one by one, and then try to summarize and come to a conclusion of how this can be used on a regular basis whenever it's released. So let us start with the first leading economic indicator for this particular video, which is the average number of hours which the manufacturing they employ, right? So average weekly hours worked in manufacturing sector. So why this is such a crucial piece of information is because we know that manufacturing, in a sense, is very capital intensive, and once the basic level of productivity is set, it is only about increasing the number of hours, right? So once the as the number of working hours increase, the manufacturing industries are able to put forward more output. So that is the entire logic behind this particular economic indicator, that there is it's a standard indicator in terms of average weekly hours worked. So in the manufacturing sector, so it helps us to understand the future production levels, right? So as I mentioned, that when the productivity is constant, assume that every trained worker has a fixed productivity. What happens when we increase the number of hours? It can correlate with the greater output. So when there is a greater output, we can come to conclusion that the manufacturing sector is pretty healthy, right? So this is the basic fundamental logic behind this. And why is this a very forward-looking leading economic indicator? Is because it helps us to get adapted to the supply-demand equations. For example, when you look at the demand fluctuations, if there is a reduction in demand, consider that there is a reduced demand condition. So what would happen is, in general, we know that the companies would try to, in the beginning, cut the number of working hours, right? Because running the shop floor or plant itself requires so much of consumption of all the utilities, electricity, etc. So that is a big uh, in terms of utility cost. So they first try to cut the number of working hours, before reducing stuff. This is what happens when there is a reduction in demand. So that is where this is directly linked. So when they cut the number of working hours, it in a way shows that there is a reduced demand. So, and conversely, if you think that there is an increase in a demand condition, so what happens? They will first think of increasing the working hours. So it is easy for a company to increase the working hours and increase the output than hiring new employees, right? So this is the first step which the companies would generally try to do, is they try to increase the working hours, they try to put in more shifts. So than hiring new employees, it is only when they realize that they cannot meet the capacity or meet the demand with the existing condition, they go for new employees and additional capital expenditure, such things. So knowing this piece of information is very crucial to understand the demand sentiments, and also it's an indicator of broader economic sentiment, because if there is a a significant increase or decrease in the weekly working hours in the manufacturing domain, it kind of indicates the optimism and pessimism about the future economic conditions, right? A decrease in the average hours, it might signal some kind of pessimism and some kind of downturn, and an increase might reflect an optimism and growth. So this is the first one in the series, which is the weekly hours worked in manufacturing. So this piece of information is very crucial to understand. So whenever we come across this particular information, we have to look at it from a futuristic, forward-looking, guidance point of view. And coming to the institutions which release this on a day-to-day basis, you can see that there is one US. Let me clear this drawings first. So in the US, there is a particular institute called the Conference Board, which releases uh, an index called leading economic index itself, right? So it releases this on a monthly basis, and in this index, this is a composite index, and in that index there is one subcomponent which we are discussing currently as the first part. This is called the average weekly working hours. So in this composite index, what they do is through the surveys, whatever they find out, that what is the weekly average weekly hours in manufacturing, whether they have increased or decreased, and they depict it in such a. So an increase can be considered as we just discussed, kind of optimism, kind of increase in the output and such things, and decrease in a negative sense. So the LEI of the conference board, which is released on a month-on-month basis, can be looked in as a data point to understand this particular point, that is the average weekly working hours. So that's it about this particular leading economic indicator. So hope it was. I mean, in the next part, I'll try to cover the second part of the data, second and series of the economic indicators, especially the leading economic indicators, right? So